This is Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily with Andrew Hustler Paterson and Michael Remis.
Hey, what's up, gang? Welcome to a big edition of Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Coming off an 8-1 beatdown by the Winnipeg Jets of the Boston Bruins. Did get a little ugly in the third period, and there's a lot to talk about, both on what happened on the ice and what happened after the whistle, or at least after Boston was down 6-1. Some gloves were dropped. A very questionable choice by Trent Frederick of who he was going to go after, in my opinion. And I'm looking forward to having Kevin Sawyer on the program today. Sawyer, of course, was in between benches last night for TSN, as Scott Arniel gave Joe Sacco a piece of his mind. So we'll see what he heard. And, you know, for a guy that spent his fair share of time dropping the gloves in the National Hockey League, what he thought about the way Boston approached their 5-goal deficit, and in particular what an experienced fighter like Trent Frederick did going after David Gustafsson, who had all of 0 fights under his belt in the National Hockey League. Of course, Adam Lowry and Logan Stanley stepping up after that was a big part of the post-game conversation. But this, my friends, was the frick you game from Mark Scheifele to a certain Boston Bruins GM, Don Sweeney, who also happens to be the general manager of Team Canada, who left Mark off the final roster last week when things were announced. Incredible game for the top line. They were dynamic yesterday. Kyle Connor, Mark Scheifele, Gabriel Velarde, your first 3 stars of the game, but Scheifele in particular, considering everything that happened last week, seemed to make a big statement to Team Canada brass with what he did yesterday. We'll hear from Scott Arniel. We'll also hear from Adam Lowry, who had some really interesting comments after last night's game, the 8-1 win for the Winnipeg Jets. We're also going to have Murat on, and I know Murat was in the scrums afterwards asking some questions both about the game and the code, if you will. So many code references, I think, coming up on today's program as well. A little later on, Jays make a big move yesterday. Josh Goldberg will jump on. We'll get a little bit into the baseball offseason, the Juan Soto deal, the Max Fried acquisition by the Yankees yesterday, as well as what the Toronto Blue Jays did. So buckle up. It should be a good one. Lots of Jets talk, and, of course, getting ready for the Vegas Golden Knights coming in tomorrow night at Canada Life Center. Just before we welcome in Michael Remis, shout out to everyone that's with us live here today on YouTube. Make sure you hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, and give the show a thumbs up. And a big thanks to all the sponsors that make the show happen each and every day. Don't forget, Hockey Canada, the ultimate 50-50 draw is live right now. First draw on December 26th, kicking off the World Juniors. All the money from Manitoban entries stays in Manitoba. There'll be a Manitoba prize, and the other 50 of the 50-50 is going to go to help grassroots hockey initiatives and programs here in our province. So you can check the link in the description for that. We'll tell you a little bit more about it later on. Of course, want to thank Princess Auto, Coolbet Canada, fansfirst.ca, and the Winnipeg Jets, Canadian Club, Wallace & Wallace, Rollies Transfer, Manitoba Battery, F Apparel, Little Brown Jug, Royal Sports, Boston Pizza, and we will get to a why not question of the day for not Autocorp, but Waverly and McGillivray as well. Welcome to everybody in chat, and welcome to you, Michael Remis. How about that game last night?
Oh, man. Amazing, Hustler. We've talked a lot about fatigue and rest, and isn't it amazing how the first time the Jets play a game in the same city 2 days in a row, first time in a month, they put up the most number of goals in a game they have in a month. I'm not a stats guy. I don't know if there's a correlation there or not, but I think if you saw the performance on against Columbus on Sunday, what an incredible bounce back. That's looking more like the Winnipeg Jets that we've seen for a majority of this season, putting up 8 goals on Boston, who had come in to Winnipeg on an 8-game win streak, Huss. So, the top line reversed all the stuff that we had said, during that slump. Nikita Chibrikov came in and really made an impact, putting 2 points on the board.
It was awesome.
And of course, Huss, there was some shenanigans at the end of the game. I don't know, where does Trent Frederick rank on Jets fans' enemy list? Is he up there with Ryan Hartman now? Is he vaulted past Marcus Foligno? I'm sure that'll come up quite a bit here on the show.
I think Hartman still has the belt.
Yeah,
but Trent Frederick would be a contender. Listen, I kind of want to focus more on the game, and we'll talk about what happened, with all of that with Kevin Sawyer coming on. But just to reiterate what I said on my tweet after the game, I thought that was embarrassing, and I thought that was an absolute chicken shit move for a guy that's a so-called tough guy in the NHL. Your team's getting your team's getting your asses kicked on the ice, on the scoreboard. And I get it. You might want to go and mix it up and challenge a guy. But, to do it to David Gustafsson is just weak. Absolutely lame move. I'm not here to say there's no place for fighting or anything in the game, but there is some semblance, I still think, in this game, or at least that's what, the hockey aficionados tell us. There's a level of respect in the game. Well, there's not a lot of respect in going after a young Swede that's never had a fight to prove a point when you're down 5 goals in the third period. Good on Logan Stanley for stepping up and going at it with a very, very big dude. Kastelik can hold his own, and certainly Stan as well. And listen, Adam Lowry wasn't looking to fight in the third period when you're blowing out that team. But you could see how pissed off he was. Yelling at the bench. Arneal was livid, as I would expect he was. Most of the fans in the building were livid, myself included. And I just thought that it was a Bush League way to try to pull something out of a game that nobody on your team was very good. Of course, David Gustafsson left the ice, did not return to the game. Adam Lowry referred to a head injury. David Gustafsson didn't practice today. So it was completely unnecessary, and no surprise, Scott Arneal, just in the last couple of minutes from down at Canada Life Center, has announced that the Gus bus is in the garage right now in the concussion protocol. So we certainly hope that, he'll be able to get back on the ice really soon. I know his teammates appreciated the fact that, he wasn't going to back down, but that was unnecessary and way outside and beyond any sort of respect level that you expect from guys that, quote unquote, abide by the code.
Yeah, you said what you needed to say. I'll agree with everything you said there. But, one thing we kind of got lost in the shuffle, we were all excited about Chibrikov being called up and disappointed with the performance against Columbus. And we're talking about the road trip. We really didn't, we talked about it last week after they named Team Canada. But I think yesterday we didn't really mention, Mark Scheifele. We kind of left it on the back burner. We know that he's a player that is caliber Team Canada level. Did not get named to the team. That's what happens. Players make it, players don't. And we had circled this game last week saying, hey, Don Sweeney, he's the GM of Team Canada. And, Mark Scheifele, we saw what he did going up against Paul Maurice in their first time. He's a guy who shows up in big games, and man, did he have one yesterday. I got to say, there was questions about if he was going through an injury. I don't think there are anymore, because that shot on the pass from Josh Morrissey that was on a tee, Huss. If anyone was missing, we talked a lot about, Patrick Laine. That was the Mark Scheifele snapshot from the left side and in. Beautiful. What a game he had, and what a game for that top line. Scheifele, 2 goals, 1 assist. Connor, 1 and 2, and Velarde, 1 and 1. There were some questions, after the Columbus game. They wasn't that great. They were -3. What a performance against a very good Boston team yesterday by that top line. Every line played well, but Mark Scheifele, I agree with you with the frick you game to Coach GM Sweeney.
And listen, I mean, the Scheifele goals were massive. I mean, these weren't, goals to make it 7-1 and 8-1. I mean, Scheifele scored, with 2 minutes left in the first period to give the Jets a big 2-0 lead. And then on that pass from Josh Morrissey, ripped one in to make it 3-0. And really give the Jets that comfortable lead that, they never really relinquished, despite the fact that Pasta was able to rip one past Hellebuck for the Bruins' lone goal of the game. And then in the third period, I mean, the play that Scheifele made, as impressive as the goals were, Remis, the play that Scheifele made with the pass in, 1:13 into the third, paying the price, selling out, getting smoked by Zadorov, who took his liberties and maybe gave Scheifele a little bit extra, to put that right on Kyle Connor's stick and quickly in the back of the net of Jeremy Swayman, who had a very long night at the office, was just, a huge part of it. A lot of the other guys got some points later on, but it was Scheifele. And you know what? Yesterday, and again, we have spent so much time, and a lot of people in chat spent so much time talking about the six defensemen and all of that, and we'll get to that. Stanley actually had a really strong game last night and did what you're looking, if he's going to be in the lineup for that reason, to get involved and be there for his teammates, and he did that. But like we said yesterday, for this team to get back in the win column moving forward, it wasn't going to be determined by who was the sixth defenseman. It was going to be determined by what the Jets are getting at the top of the lineup, especially with Nikolai Ehlers out right now. And as you mentioned, Remis, it started with 55. Kyle Connor, Gabriel Velarde, just an absolutely monster game against a good team that had come in playing very well, and there was no doubt who the better team was last night.
Yeah, I think, maybe we get focused on the sixth defenseman because this team doesn't make any lineup changes, and it's seemingly something you can debate rather than saying, hey, top line, you guys need to play better, or you need to score more on the power play. Those things are obvious. And the power play had a rough stretch over the last couple of games. They did get one eventually the other night against Columbus. But when you look at last night, 3 for 6 on the power play. That's 50%. And this is a power play that was operating at 40% at one point of the season. Had kind of taken a step back. And you saw them move the puck. And it wasn't just power play one, Hustler. And I want to give you credit. You mentioned on the WST parlay yesterday. Credit to you for putting out at the end of the show. It was Pionk point, Niederreiter point, and the Jets win. And when on the first goal, Nemestikov put one in. It was some great movement. Chibrikov, I thought he looked good. Did not get a point on that play, but looked really confident moving the puck. To the Pionk slapper, Niederreiter pokes it to Nemestikov in, and I knew the WST parlay was in for a good night, and it was the second power play has getting in on 2 of those goals. I follow it with another one from Pionk and Chibrikov, his first career NHL assist. And yes, the other one, Mark Scheifele with a pass from Josh Morrissey. What a beautiful pass that was to make it 3-0 Winnipeg. So the Jets off to a great start. Maybe, right after Pasternak scores a couple of minutes later, the power play of their own. Boston was 1 for 2 on the power play. You thought there would be some pushback. But in the third period, 4, 5 unanswered goals and some other shenanigans for the Jets to put it away 8-1. And yes, Jeremy Swayman left in for all 8 among chants of U.S. third string? Was that the chant last night? U.S. Pretty good. I guess that's a storyline, for every team throughout the year. How many guys you have in the Four Nations? Pasternak not in, but Brad Marchand, he'll be part of Team Canada. We know the guys from the Jets who are on Canada and USA as well. So what entertaining. These Tuesday games, sometimes you think they're going to be, like last week in St. Louis, Doug games, but we've had a couple fire ones. The Florida game was game of the year. This one was up there too.
Well, it was fun. If you were a Jet fan, it was fun. There was a lot of people that probably came in cheering for the Bruins, doing their usual chest pumping at the beginning of the game that did not have much to cheer about, and left kind of quiet last night. And it's always nice, when it's the Leafs or the Habs or the Bruins, teams that generally bring out a larger portion of visiting fans, to get a big win last night. So, by the way, I knew that it would not take long for me to look in the chat and see all caps takes from T. Konopali. Lineup needs an Olivier or Delorier. We're going to get to that with Kevin Sawyer a little bit later on, T. Konopali, but I knew you would have some takes on this, and as I said, we'll get to that. But let's get to post-game, because afterwards, Scott Arniel certainly loved what his team did, but there was many other questions about what transpired last night, especially in the third period. Here's Scott Arniel.
I thought we played a hell of a hockey game. I talked about this morning that we need to get better at attacking the net, the opposition net. Thought we did a fantastic job in the first period and got us all zone time. It got us, second and third opportunities, and we just continued into that second period. Get up 3-1. That quick goal we got at the start of the third. We come out and kind of cement that kind of away. Really liked just the fact that we were in attack mode all game, and stuff happens. I mean, that's obviously, you want to see that happen to Gus, but at the end of the day, our two big boys just settled it back down. Once it was over, once those two fights were done, it was done. So don't like all the stuff that happened, but it is what it is. Hockey. They're pissed off at us where the score was at, or their games or whatever. At the end of the day, I just like the fact that we stuck together and did what we have to do, and once those fights were done, it was done. So.
All right, so there's Scott Arniel on the game overall. Now, Murat, who's going to join us a little later on, did ask the coach about sending out the first power play unit when it's 6-1 after sending out PP2 when it was 5-1. Here's what the coach had to say on that.
I don't know how much into that you want to get, but the things that I noticed, I think, was at 5-1 you put the second PP unit out, and at 6-1 out came the big boys, but that was likely because of what happened in the middle of that. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. That's certainly, you read that right. But at the end of the day, I'm not going to sit and talk about what happened in the last 10 minutes of hockey. That's detrimental for the game we played. We played a hell of a hockey game against a good hockey team, and that's more of what I'm more concerned about. We just, we had lost our last game here. That wasn't a real good outing by us, and like I said, a good team, a good veteran team. The way we come out and played, that's what I'm proud of. That's what I got out of that hockey game.
Man, Remis, I love that clip from Arniel. I mean, just kind of nodding and said, yeah, you read that right. It was clear. And as I say, I can't wait to ask Kevin Sawyer what he was hearing between the benches at that moment. But it was clear that the Jets thought that was Bush League. And you know what? You're going to take a run at our guys. Well, we're going to keep on running the score up on you. And that's exactly what the Winnipeg Jets did.
We listen to these Scott Arniel press conferences every day. He seems to me like such a calm, mild-mannered guy. But look at this from yesterday, and this was our thumbnail of the show. Scott Arniel giving it to Joe Sacco.
Is Sacco doing a who, me?
Yeah, he's like, who, me? And I think he's mouthing like, you don't talk to our players or something like that. And yeah, Kevin was in between the benches, so I'm really excited to hear what he has to say. But we've seen it a couple times this year. Scott Arniel's a coach. He stands up for his players. He gets intense when he needs to, and love to see it behind the bench. So he's doing an awesome job, Huss, in his first full season as Winnipeg Jets head coach. And I do think he'll get some Jack Adams consideration with the Jets tied with Minnesota for first place in the league, although Minnesota has 2 games ahead, but they've been in round first all year long.
Yeah, I mean, listen, there's still a lot of runway, and a lot of hockey left to be played, but certainly, the first 30 games for the Winnipeg Jets with Scott Arniel as the official head coach has been, I think, beyond what most people expected. Here's what Arniel, listen, this is a big game for Winnipeg. I mean, they needed that bounce back after kind of an ugly game against Columbus. They certainly got it, led by that top line. Here's what Arniel had to say about what they can build on moving forward to another tough opponent in Vegas.
Well, there's a lot of things that'll come out of that game. Like I said earlier, the attack mentality of our 5-on-5 game, the attack mentality of our power play, the playing against a heavy team and playing it the right way, sticking up for each other. Those are all glue things that happen. Those are all, like you say, there's things that you build towards the future. You know what? It's just I'm proud of the guys that, in all circumstances of that hockey game, I thought we handled it extremely well.
All right, so there's Scott R. Neal. One more from R. Neal on his captain, Adam Lowry, fighting in the third period in the fashion that he did.
He's done that, and in the last 2.5 years I've been here, he's done that every game, in different situations, not just fighting, but just his presence and how he leads and how he goes about things. That's why he's wearing the C on his jersey.
Well, and listen, I mean, so much had been on the shoulders of Adam Lowry in the past, and with Brendan Dillon gone, if you're wondering why Logan Stanley's in the lineup more often than not, look no further to the third period of that game last night, because you can't have it all on Adam Lowry. And that being said, after Stan had stepped up, because of what had happened, it was Lowry that was laying out the challenge and going, dropping the gloves, not with Pavel Zacha, not with one of the smaller guys on the team, actually going at it with Nikita Zadorov. Take notes, Trent Frederick. Here's Adam Lowry, though. He spoke afterwards, and first off, here's what he thought about the 8-1 win by his club.
There was just more directness. I think we were real quick through the neutral zone, and just the execution was there. I think all facets of the game. Obviously, the game kind of gets off the rails in the third, and score effects and things like that. But through the first two periods, I thought, for the most part, we got a lot of pucks to the net, and Scheif had a couple huge goals, and I thought we did a good job on the forecheck. We did a good job in zone, not really giving their top guys a lot of time and space to create plays. So, yeah, I think that's kind of how we have to play to be successful.
All right, so there's Adam Lowry on the game. Now, I have to give Paul Friesen, immense credit, the experienced Big J journo that he is. He dropped the best question to Adam Lowry. It wasn't, were you upset? It was, what were you most upset about in the third period at the end? And here's what Adam Lowry had to say to that.
Plays a hard game. I'm not disagreeing with that. I think, for guys that fight, we generally know who on the other team fights. So, I think it's just one of those things. Gussie, I'm real proud of him not backing down, but, I think that's a situation that he shouldn't be put in the first place. So, that's what I was upset about. Good on Stan and Cass, two big, honest guys, play the game hard and, go after it. And I got a lot of respect for Z over there. He doesn't have to answer the bell. The game's kind of over. But to give me one there, both times I fought him, they've been in kind of blowout games. So, he shows up, and, I appreciated that.
Now, the one thing I will say, and we'll get into this again with Kevin, I thought that things might get a little spicy, and they did. The one thing that was completely forgot about all of this is that it really got nasty on what I thought was a pretty cheap headshot from Charlie McAvoy to Cole Perfetti. And there was certainly no answering the bell from McAvoy. I will just leave it at that. Here's Lowry on why he felt he had to fight in Nikita Zadorov.
You see one of your teammates go down, and obviously not thrilled with how it happened, but I think, you answer the bell, it kind of just settles everything down. You go after, arguably their toughest guy, and, then hopefully kind of all the other stuff just goes by the wayside. I think, sometimes it's a competitive game. If we're in that position, we don't like to lose. I don't blame them for, what happened. It's kind of the nature of a competitive sport, but, you just want to go out there and, let your teammates know you got their back. So, that was my thinking. I had my line mates trying to tell me no, but, sometimes you got to do what you got to do.
Good luck with that, line mates. Adam Lowry, once again showing why he was an incredible choice for captain of the Winnipeg Jets. Now, there was another question, to Lowry just about, it's such a mismatch of the fight that started all the nonsense with Frederick going after Gustafsson. Now, the question is, whose responsibility is it to avoid, a weight class mismatch like we saw last night? Is it on Trent Frederick, or is it on David Gustafsson to kind of walk away and back down?
I think it's 50-50. You can't just place all the onus on Trent. That's, unfair. I think, it's a tough spot. You get challenged to fight, you don't want to say no. So, I think looking back, it could have just been handled differently. So, it's a game of hockey. I think it's unfortunate, the outcome. I think that's really, where we get upset is you don't want to see a teammate hurt. You don't want to see a teammate down on the ice and with a head injury. So, I think that's where the emotion comes into it. I think some of the responsibilities on both those guys. So we'll leave it at that.
We will leave it at that from the captain as well, but we'll certainly be talking about it more with Murat as well as Kevin Sawyer, who was between the benches. Short and sweet from Mark Scheifele after the game. I think he did most of his talking on the ice, but Scheifele was asked if he intended to show up or send a message to Don Sweeney considering his omission from the Team Canada roster last week.
You're just happy to play a good game. Obviously, he's the GM, but, you just want to go out there and give it your all for your team and get a win. Obviously we needed one at home here, and, I thought that was a great response by all of us.
It certainly was. And just in case you were wondering how things went over in the Boston locker room, here's Bruins captain Brad Marchand on who was the better team last night.
They were good and we were not good. We weren't executing. We were lost in our coverage. And we didn't win enough battles. So, they were good. They make plays, but we did not have a good game.
All right, we're going to get down to business with Kevin Sawyer. Really looking forward to this coming up, considering his perch for last night's game and everything that went on. Before we do that, though, gang, do not forget, tickets are available right now for Canada's ultimate 50-50 draw for the World Junior Hockey Championships, the biggest power play yet. 3 draws. The first one is on December 26th. And as we explained before, this is a national initiative from Hockey Canada, but there is a draw for each province. So Manitobans, Winnipeggers, you'll be in a pool for Manitoba only. And the great part of it is every cent that comes into the pool, the 50% that doesn't go to the winner, is going to go to grassroots hockey initiatives right here in communities across the province. So definitely for a great cause. And we know how much people like 50-50 draws in and around the holidays. There's a link in the description of this YouTube video. So if you want to just quickly click on that, you can get tickets, options of going from 1 ticket all the way up to $999 for the December 26th draw. And you can also just find it if you're listening on the podcast, hockeymanitoba.myshopify.com. Get those tickets in. First draw is on the 26th of December. Shout out to our friends at Rolly's Transfer. Gang, if you and your family have a move planned for 2025, get on it and do it with the most trusted name in moving in Manitoba, family owned and operated for over 60 years right here in the Peg. Rolly's Transfer. Their extensive logistics business takes them around Winnipeg and Manitoba on a daily basis, which means great rates, flexible routes and timing, and the white glove treatment that Rolly's is famous for. Check out their website at rollys.com. Click on Request an Estimate. Put in the promo code WST for a special discount on moving services and moving supplies from Rolly's, and let them know when and where you're moving and what needs to go. They'll turn it around. Their friendly staff will contact you with a great quote and get you locked and loaded for your next move. In 2025, if you're on the move, get the white glove treatment from Rolly's. Find out more, request an estimate today at rollys.com. The deep freeze is finally here, gang, just in time for the Vegas Golden Knights. If we were going to get really cold, let it be when Vegas comes to town. But listen, as we get ready for Christmas, this is the time to give a gift that matters with the help of Manitoba Battery. Don't let your loved ones be stranded in the cold with a vehicle that won't start. Make sure they're equipped to handle whatever is thrown at them this winter with the NOCO 1000 amp booster pack for only $139.50. Or how about a set of 25-foot booster cables for just $65? Or maybe you want to treat yourself to a great deal and grab that ice fishing flasher battery you need, or that sled battery that needs to be replaced. All for the best prices in the city. period, beating the pants off the big box stores. Let Manitoba Battery help you give a Christmas gift that matters this December. Learn more at manitobabattery.com, now with 2 locations to serve you. And as we bring in Kevin Sawyer, we see him looking good in between the benches. Fellas, if you want to look good for 2025, get on down to F Apparel at 190 Smith Street with the best in custom men's clothing in town. And maybe it's a great time to give a little nudge that you wouldn't mind an F Apparel gift card for Christmas, because right now, up until the big day, any gift card purchase of $100 or more will have an added 15% bonus to it. So you can pick and get something that you like at a great deal right now. Gift card sales on F Apparel, EPHapparel.com, or pop down and get that great deal in advance of Christmas at 190 Smith Street downtown. All right, let's get to last night's game. Absolute pleasure to welcome in TSN's Kevin Sawyer. And quite a game last night at the rink. Kevin, what's going on? Thanks for jumping on with us. Hold on a second.
Oh,
Kevin,
I had him muted. Sorry.
Yeah, Kevin, what's up? How are you?
A lot of people like to mute me. Don't worry about that. I'm used to that. I'm doing good, man. That was thanks for having me. That was a good game, wasn't it? In every way, entertaining and so many different levels.
Yeah, no doubt. By the way, I just finished up the lock shop with my pal and partner, Dustin Nielsen, who wanted to make a point of saying hi. He had a great time doing those games with you. A big fan. So Dusty says hi. But as far as the game goes, you know what? We'll get to what happened in the third period in a minute. But, you know, yesterday on the program, it's so easy to get into the minutia of lineup changes on the third defense pairing or the fourth line. For the Winnipeg Jets to come back and get to where they can be at their best, it was going to take a big-time game from the number one line. And, man, did they answer the bell last night. And I don't know. I mean, I'd love your perspective on Mark Scheifele's thought space going in. We joked that this was the frick you game, if you will, because we all know that he was left off the Team Canada roster. We knew Don Sweeney is the general manager of both Canada and the Boston Bruins. And Mark, along with his line mates, made a big-time statement last night, didn't they?
No doubt. And you know what? Pro players find different ways to motivate themselves. It's a long year. And although Mark would never admit it, I think that there's no doubt that he'll find new ways to motivate himself. I personally think that Mark was on the outside looking in anyways. And I think that a lot needed to go well for him. And it was going extremely well throughout the course of the season before that stretch of games where he got banged up. The team was banged up and fatigued, rightfully so. And so I don't think the schedule did him any favors, but frick you game would be a really accurate way to describe that. And I'll say this about Scheif as well, where the game after, and I believe we were in Buffalo, that he found out the news. And that's a tough one to be up emotionally for and not sag and pout. And I thought that he had one of his better games, rebounding from, you know, a real average stretch for him and the team. So a lot of respect as far as being a mature pro about dealing with, you know, being left off that team.
Yeah, and you know, it's funny just thinking about Scheifele and, you know, the last, I guess it's probably 3 weeks from what I thought was maybe his statement game that was going to get him on the team, that hat trick against the Florida Panthers of all teams. And then, you know, he went through that stretch where it was obvious that, you know, he wasn't right. He wasn't taking face-offs. He was just often was just skating with one hand on his stick, which is uncharacteristic of Mark. Certainly looked like he was pretty darn close to back to being to normal last night.
Yeah, that's the story where, and I know that you know, maybe Mark could have sat some time. Maybe it took a couple games to get himself back closer to 100%, and he was adamant about making sure that he played through the pain. And that's the tough part where I said, you know, outside looking in, he needed things to go well. That stretch of hockey to me was the difference. And I remember back to last season where I looked for statement games. We were down, the Jets were down 3-0 going into the third in Carolina, which is a tough team to play. And it was Mark Scheifele that took the game over. And those are the things that we're seeing a little bit more of now, where Mark and the top line are able to do that. And that's what he did against Florida. And that's what you saw again last night. Listen, that Boston Bruins team is a big bruising team. And they didn't look very good last night. And I don't think that was because of as much about the Boston Bruins, but it was more about what Winnipeg did, and it was led by the top line. Direct, fast, simple to start, and then that started opening up more as the game grew.
Kevin, we're inevitably going to get to some of the bad blood that developed in the third period between these clubs, but I don't want to overlook the season debut of Nikita Chibrikov, and a very different player than Brad Lambert. And I thought Brad had some moments. I mean, looked good. I mean, obviously probably lost a little sleep after missing that open net against the Chicago Blackhawks. Yep. But shows that he's got that level of speed, and I think as he gets a little bit more confidence, he is going to be a player. Holy smokes, Nikita Chibrikov, though, came in, and he did not look like a guy, from my perspective, playing in his second NHL game. There was no stage fright for Nikita playing in the first. I mean, this wasn't game 82. This was the Boston Bruins, a big matchup in the middle of the regular season, and I thought he passed the test with flying colors. How did you see his game?
I agree. So just to go back to Brad first before I answer that, I followed Brad a lot with the Memorial Cup in Seattle, those championship teams, and so impressive at the junior level. And then it went to the final at the Memorial Cup against the Quebec Ramparts. And to be quite frank, I wasn't impressed with Brad's performance in a we need you now game. And I thought that he shied away from contact. I thought that he was overwhelmed with the pressure of the moment. And I thought, oh boy, okay, here's a young, talented, fast player, first round prospect for the Jets that has some lessons to learn. And then I look at him last year in his debut. It's a one-off, and maybe it was a blessing that those guys didn't have time to think about it. They got off a plane and played a game. He's grown, and I think that's Jets fans should be excited about the fact that he now does not shy away from contact. He's willing to win 50-50 races, to take a bump, to go to the net. He understands how to reload and play the game defensively first. I think that the trajectory for Brad is exciting, and I think that he's passed the tests to this point. Nikita Chibrikov, you're right, totally a different player. He's got some moxie to his game, like some snap. And I talked to him yesterday morning before the game, and I was trying to crack a smile out of him and relax him a little bit, and he was all game, and all prepared for that game. And what I like about him is he's not going to say, "Oh, I'm going to feel my way into this. I'm here to stay." He's not going to stay, but he played exactly the way he needs to, and that is to rip the puck. He can shoot it, and we've seen that now twice. He's got a 2-game goal streak going in his NHL career so far, but more of that same, right? He's not going to defer. He's fearless to some degree, not afraid to go to the net. I think the Jets should be excited about what they have in those two young prospects. I don't think it's going to be very long, a couple years maybe before we see those guys in regular Jets jerseys.
So the Jets pour it on. It goes to 5-1. 6-1, and then the Bruins decide that they have to send some sort of a message. Listen, you're no stranger to dropping the gloves when you were playing in the National Hockey League. What did you think of Trent Frederick's choice of who he was going to be an aggressor with, and David Gustafsson, who had never dropped the gloves ever in the National Hockey League?
Yeah, I looked at that again, and it was Frederick that was instigating, there's no doubt. So you look at this from two different angles where, to me, Frederick needs to maybe have a response. The game's over, and what are you accomplishing at that point? Maybe setting things up for the next game, like we saw Mark Scheifele do in Florida against the Panthers when they pushed us out of the rink. So I think Frederick knew enough and should have known enough to not throw a punch. He's up against a guy that's never fought before. So, but at the same time, he can't back down, and that's where I give a ton of credit to Dave Gustafsson, where he's a bubble guy in the lineup for the third time this year, and he is most certainly not going to back down. So I give him a ton of credit for dropping the gloves. I don't think Dave knew exactly who he was up against, but Frederick could have dealt with that in a different way, where he could have ragged him and not thrown a punch. But I'll say this on top of that, and this is where the game has changed. I understand that. I know that it's different than when I played, but there were opportunities throughout the course of the game, and this is where guys will learn this that are in the lineup for the Jets, where, it's 3-1, 4-1. You don't need to fight. You don't want to give the other team an opportunity to get momentum, to get back into it. But then it becomes 5-1, 6-1, and you've got Kastelik hunting, and he's saying, I'm going to do something. Somebody's going to do something. And if you're Logan Stanley, and I appreciate and respect the fact that he ended up fighting Kastelik after David Gustafsson, but in those moments, and this is part of learning, you say to yourself, they're going to push and they're going to make a statement, and I have to make sure it's me they go through. So it got diffused after the Stanley fight, after the Gustafsson knockdown. But there are things that you can do to make sure that that gets diffused. The other team gets what they want and need, and you make sure that you're the man that they go through. So that's a part of the progression for Logan Stanley, to make sure that he's that guy at the right time before it gets to that point, in my opinion.
You know, it's funny you say that, Kevin, and I don't want to seem like some crazy bloodthirsty fan, although sometimes you get sucked into being that when you're in the building and you see what happened last night. But I mean, to your point, if anyone should have been the aggressor, I thought maybe some sort of a response to Charlie McAvoy for that headshot to Cole Perfetti before any of that stuff happened.
Yeah, you know what? You're bang on. And then this is where I tread lightly, because, you know, it's so easy to say, oh, the old guy that couldn't play, fourth line fighter from a different era. And again, I understand that that's different, but if I'm a bubble player and I'm trying to establish myself, I'm making sure that if there's an opportunity, and if I'm not sure, I'm going to err on the side of, hey, I'm going to make sure that I'm going to make a statement here for myself. And that is, again, I'm not singling out Logan Stanley, but that's got to be a part of his game if he is going to bring something that nobody else can. And I've always said this, where if you're in the NHL, you have something, one thing at least, that you're better than almost everybody else at. And whether it's forechecking, defending, penalty killing, something, physicality. And for me, Logan Stanley is adequate at moving the puck at times. He's getting better there. He's a good skater for a guy that's 6'7". That physical piece, you can't teach 6'7", and that's where you have to understand, okay, how can I get better here? And that's not an easy thing to do. Logan Stanley is an unbelievable person. He's a great guy that wants to be good, and that's a hard thing to bring out in somebody. But those are opportunities for me, if I'm Logan Stanley, to say, I'm jumping over my teammates to make sure that I'm the guy. And Adam Lowry is going to do that anyway, but I want to be the guy. And eventually, if he is going to be who I think the Jets want him to be and need him to be, he's going to understand that, and that's going to be cellular, where other teams are going to be like, I'm not making that hit because this guy won't let it go. And that's how you can control a game if you're a guy that's 6'7".
Yeah, I mean, listen, I mean, I think that Stan, he right now, I mean, there's a lot of competition for playing time and just spots in the roster. I mean, I think Colin Miller's been really good, and he's been out at times. And, of course, Dylan Sandberg is out. And when he's back, he'll be back with Neil Pionk, which makes playing time that much more crucial. Like this period of time for Logan Stanley, and listen, there's some things that he doesn't do as well as other guys. There's to your point, there's some things that he brings to the lineup that the other players don't have. The absence of Brendan Dillon on this team this year is significant, and it seems like right now he's getting a run to show that he can be a guy, because Adam Lowry's too important to this team to be the guy that goes out and settles every single score or perceived slight against the Winnipeg Jets.
Yes. Listen, I see in my opinion what's happening here. Brendan Dillon wasn't replaced. Sean Monahan, Tyler Toffoli weren't replaced. And you've had guys like Logan Stanley and Ville Heinola hanging around here now for, since, it's been 6 and 8 years since they've been drafted. And so I think that, Kevin Cheveldayoff and Scott Arniel are saying, let's find out. Let's find out so that we're not in and out, back and forth. And I like that. Do I think that the Winnipeg Jets have dressed the lineup that they think gives them the best chance to win every single game this year? No, I don't. And that is not a slight against anybody like Heinola or Stanley, but they're also saying, listen, this is the time to try to win while we develop, so that down the road, they believe Stanley and Heinola can give them more than a Coughlin or a Miller. And I like that, because sometimes you have to give up a little bit now to get a little bit more later, or the next time maybe they pull Stanley out of the lineup, they're saying it's the last time. So they're going to give him a real chance. I like that, so that they resolve this at some point and say, okay, we got a player here. Our first round draft pick is now becoming who we want him to be. And the only way he'll do that is if he gets some time to build some confidence, make some mistakes, as long as his trajectory continues to head upward. The same with Billy.
Just on Stanley, and listen, he is he is a polarizing figure among some Jet fans. There's always a lot of banter and discourse on it. I don't think there's any doubt that the best thing that Logan Stanley can do to keep himself as a prime option for Scott Arniel and in the lineup is to, well, do what he did last night, but, maybe add, and again, this is a tough thing to just instill in someone if it's not there, but be aggressive, be mean, bring some more nasty to the game because, as I said, there's a lot of guys that are big, tough guys that don't have that size. The size is something that separates him from everyone, but I think there is an onus on him, and I mean, fairly or unfairly, an expectation that he'll be able to do that as you mentioned, maybe be a little bit more proactive, shall we say, in some of those situations. I don't think anything could help his spot with the organization in the lineup more than that moving forward.
And the thing that I'll add to that, and I agree, we see this the same way. I think a lot of Jets fans understand that as well. It's just hard to stay patient. But the one thing that has to happen before that Logan can really get to the identity that I think he needs to have is he has to be there. Like, he has to be in the fight. He has to be on time. And to do that, you can't chase the game. You got to have the footwork, the foot speed to make sure that you are not arriving late. Because if you arrive half a second late, you're taking minor penalties. And we've seen that where Logan's taken, 3 in one game and too many. He knows it. And so the first step is to make sure that he has a step and he's quick enough. And then when you're quick enough, now you're in the battle at the right times. And then you're forcing other people to take penalties on you versus the other way around. So there's a lot going on here. Again, I got to tell you that Logan Stanley is an outstanding person. The guys love him in the locker room. He's really popular, and he wants to get this right. He's been given an opportunity, but we all know at some point this is a results business, and you're going to have to, he's going to have to figure this out. I think that he took a step in the right direction. The last 2 or 3 games, I think that he's been better than the 2 or 3 games prior to that. So the key is to continue with that.
I will say this. I mean, for all the people that love analytics, you looked at the chart from last night's game, and it was the Scheifele, Velarde, Kyle Connor, who were like 90% expected goals. Analytics darling, Logan Stanley, next guy up, 75% or so last night. Actually had himself a game, but obviously we're talking about this. And maybe the biggest thing going for him right now, especially as you get into games against Boston and the Vegas Golden Knights tomorrow and the Dallas Stars, like some teams that have that nasty to their game, is can you imagine what that third period would have looked like if Logan Stanley wasn't in the game? Because then it's basically Adam Lowry and anyone else that wants to go in and probably be in somewhat of a mismatch.
So and that's what I love about what we're seeing right now, where, the Jets, when they lose, there's themes to the losses for the most part. And I'm okay with that, because this is the time of the year where good coaches, and Scott Arniel knows this better than anybody, are saying, okay, perfect. That is putting a mirror in our face as to what we need to know in May. And so just imagine if the Jets had to play the Bruins 6 more times after that game. You know that the Bruins are coming back in a different way, and they're going to initiate. And so you have to not answer the bell just in a one-off. You got to do it 6 more times potentially. So that's where, this gets into another part of the conversation, but I mean, the Jets have to win playoff hockey, but in their own way. And that is by being fast, by beating teams through the neutral zone with skill, and also finding ways to get to the middle of the ice. But I mean, that's the thing. You play a 7-game series against a team like Boston, they're going to take a chunk at it. You have to be willing to find a way to do the same thing the other way. Logan Stanley is a big part of that.
I love this take on this, because I really do think that you're nailing it in that, like, let's not lose sight of the fact that this is the 30-game mark of the season, and teams change, and you learn a lot about your group right now. And listen, I'm not going to say that the Jets as a team aren't tough enough. I mean, I think they stand up for themselves, and that's not really part of the calling card that they're in, but you get sucked into that. I mean, I think of what Vegas did at the beginning of last season when Cole Perfetti was playing center in the first few games of the season. I mean, the amount of times they ran him in that game, and very quickly he was moved to the wing. I mean, from your perspective, what would a guy, T. Konopal, he's famous for wanting Tyrell Bauer in the lineup, and he's talking about Olivier and Delorier. If you can have a guy that is a truly intimidating fighter that can play a regular shift, what does that do in today's National Hockey League? Because granted, the league is quite a bit different, now than it was 20 years ago.
You know what? I understand the question, and I really don't think that the fighting is what really matters, but it's what the player can do in between the whistles that could either force the other team to say, oh boy, we can't match that. So we have two options. We're going to try to fight this guy, and that's a reactionary thing, or we're going to go away. And so that's the style of player that I think that every team wants that. I mean, you look at the second line, and I have a ton of respect for the way, whether Ehlers is on that line or it's Perfetti with Nemestikov and whoever else is on that line. They've found their own way to grind. They've found their own way. But listen, we all know after the trade deadline that the men separate themselves from the boys, and then the playoffs is just a whole other thing. You need weight. And you need punishing style of players, right? So that is a difficult thing to do. So fighting, yeah, we've got toughness, we've got team toughness, but it's about making the other team feel like, oh my gosh, we can't compete with that. And so now and that's what I've said to Logan Stanley and other guys when I've been asked. It's like, it's not even about fighting; it's about forcing the other team to decide. There's nothing left to do but either fight or go away. Or you know what I'm trying to say there. So, it'll be interesting to see how this season progresses as far as the second line and if they can find a way to get some more weight up there.
While we're talking about the Jets, obviously there's a new head coach in Scott Arniel who's been with the club, but we've learned, I think, and seen a lot more of Arnie as the boss and the head guy this year, obviously through these 30 games. And while very often he's quiet, generally pretty mild-mannered. He still has a lot of that fire in him, and we saw it quite a bit last night. Tell us what it was like in the benches as Arnie was giving his thoughts, and what was the point what maybe the thing that had him as angry as he was, not to mention the rest of his team.
Yeah, well, he sees a guy like Frederick on the ice at that time of the game, and coaches. Listen, there's a ton of passion, and Scott Arniel cares about those men on the ice. So when you see a guy like Gustafsson go down, I mean, he's saying to Sacco that, you got to have control of your players. Like, that is crossing the line unacceptable. And you know what? Maybe more than anything, that's Scott Arniel saying, we're all in this together, and this is just me maybe stepping outside of what I would normally do and showing some extra emotion. Is it Joe Sacco's fault or whatever? It doesn't really matter. I can tell you that Scotty Arniel is professional, and he maybe keeps his cards close to his chest on the bench. But you talk to different guys, and even Scotty Arniel, I've seen it firsthand where he can have some snap in him when he needs to wrangle the attention of a team and take command of a room. So I like the blend that he has of being calm, and he knows when to push, he knows when to use tone or maybe to throttle back a little bit. But yeah, I was right between that, and I just decided, you know what? I think I'll just step back. I'll get out of the line of fire here. Can't repeat any of the things that were being said, but I love it. A little juice in the game never hurts, right?
Well, listen, there was a lot of it. I mean, offensive juice and a lot of passion from the Jets in that third period. Dealing with what they were from Boston. Kevin, what do you think a game like that does for a team going into another big game against a team that has quite a bit of nasty themselves in Vegas?
Yeah, I think that there's a few games throughout the course of this year where the Jets will reference, earmark, whatever, where you go back and you say, in Tampa Bay and in Florida, these teams are waiting for you, and they believe they have a style of game that can make you go away. And Tampa and Florida did that extremely well. LA, the Jets only put 14 shots on net, and they just stuffed them. And we saw the same thing against Columbus the other day. So the best thing that could have happened in my mind is you play against the biggest team in the NHL. There's 13 guys for Boston that were 6'3" or taller. And so you say, all right, are you going to battle them head to head on the wall and try to engage in their style of play? Or are we going to accept the fact that we have to go there, but we have to make them play our game? And so that was a test pass because the Jets, they used their speed, but at first it was just shot mentality, directness, make those big guys turn. And you know what? Vegas is the same style where they're going to try to clog the middle of the ice. They put a lot of onus on their sentiments down low, and the D-men just slide, right? So you got Pietrangelo, Haig, you got some big boys, McNabb, and it's just the same, but more, where Scott Arniel's got to be saying to his group, this is the style that we're going to see in the playoffs, but it's going to be even more so. So you can do it your way or you can do it our way. And last night was an example of how the Jets need to continue to build by making sure that they bring their strength to big, big, heavy teams.
Kevin Sawyer is with us from TSN. Of course, Jets taking on Vegas tomorrow night. Just before we go, and this, I mean, obviously we were going to be on the topic of Boston, the game last night. But just as a former player and a guy that has done and been with this team for a number of years now, I just wanted to get your perspective on what a special player, athlete, and dude Connor Hellebuyck is. And, you know, like, we don't even talk about his performance last night, stopping whatever, it's 25-26, no big deal. I mean, workmanlike. I mean, the level of play that he is giving the Winnipeg Jets night in and night out, and what that does for a team overall on any given night.
You know what? It's such an interesting thing, Connor Hellebuyck, and he's such an interesting person where when you see him on the road or on the plane or, you know, him going fishing, like you chat with him at the hotel and him and Iafallo have got their fishing rods and you're checking into the Ritz-Carlton. He's walking out with those camel pants and you're fishing and it's the best. And he's light and he's fun and he's just one of the guys. That's on practice day. That's on travel days. That's on off days. On game day, it's like a complete transformation of the person. And, you know, there's many times where I've walked into the rink behind him. And I've said this before on the air where it's like being in the presence of a gladiator. His focus is his form of leadership, where he might not be the most vocal in the room, but he like you get a contact high from being near Connor Hellebuyck on game day. He always uses the word details, probably overuses the word details, but that is who he is. He is so focused, and that breeds so much confidence for everybody around him. I got nothing to do with this, but when I'm around him, I'm like, oh boy, these guys got a chance to win every single night. And they do. So, yeah, I mean, the performance on the ice and his ability, and it speaks for itself, but it's that focus and presence that he has. He's got a huge piece of this room in his own way without even really having to say a word. It's impressive.
Kevin, thanks so much for doing this. It was a perfect timing to have you on today, considering what happened yesterday. But we really do appreciate it. Say hi to Dan and have a great call tomorrow night when the Jets get back to it at home. Finally, a few home games in a row after that. You ever been on a trip like that before?
Never. And I've asked a ton of guys. Like we're on the road, we're in the sauna, and a lot of the players. I'm like, have you guys ever been a part of a road trip like this? And nobody ever has. I've never seen it at the NHL level. AHL, you bet, 3-and-3s, travel, 9-hour bus rides. But man, that is. I'm just going to turn my washing machine back on after we're done here because I'm still trying to catch up from that road trip, and I didn't even play, and I'm tired.
You know, 30 games into the season. I mean, like that stat of 15 straight games in different cities. I mean, call it coming back a couple of homestands. I mean, coming back from Chicago to play one game and then being right back out to the West Coast is just. The good thing is, I mean, they're still in a great spot in the standings, and they've gone through that toughest part, and. Now it's time to get on a bit of a roll at home. Hopefully they can do it tomorrow night against Vegas. Thanks so much for doing this, Kevin. Hopefully you can do this again sometime.
Thanks for having me, fellas. I appreciate it. Had fun.
Appreciate it. There's Kevin Sawyer, TSN. He was in between the benches last night when things got a little hairy in the third period. Great to have Kevin on the program. And, of course, he'll be back with Dan tomorrow for the TSN broadcast. Okay, listen, coming off this, Murat will join us in about 5 minutes. I want to throw this to the chat because it is a topic that some people are very passionate about and a lot of people, to be honest, somewhat diminish. Why not question of the day for not Autocorp at Waverly and McGillivray? And we'll get to the fan feedback in a minute. How would you assess the Jets' level of quote-unquote toughness? You know Adam Lowry's going to be there for his guys. Logan Stanley was there last night. But, to Kevin's point, when things post-trade deadline get ratcheted up, when you get to the playoffs, where are you at with the Jets' overall team toughness? And is that, in your opinion, a need to maybe add if you are Kevin Shoveldayoff? Let us know in the chat right now. We'll get to your comments in just a moment. in fan feedback for fansfirst.ca. But here, I got to shout out our friends at Princess Auto. Folks, just a couple weeks away from Christmas, and there is so much waiting for you at Princess Auto for putting under the tree the best deals around on the most unique assortment of tools and equipment you will find anywhere is waiting for you at Princess Auto. So as you're looking ahead to 2025, maybe starting a list of things you'd like to get done, Princess Auto can help you do all of that. Now, of course, Princess Auto gift cards, a great Christmas gift as well. And you can maybe take care of that list for your loved one if there's something neat. You can shop online at Princess Auto 24/7, 365. Of course, Princess Auto, founded in Winnipeg, headquartered in Winnipeg, now coast to coast, but with 3 locations in Manitoba, Panet Road, Portage Avenue West, and of course, a store out in Brandon for our friends out in Westman. Again, shop online at princessauto.com. As we get to the holidays, you're going to be entertaining. You're going to have the friends and family over for some great nights, and you're going to be doing some gift giving. And if any of those involve whiskey, you need to jump on while supplies last. The Canadian Club Classic 18-year-old high proof, just released one time only as the second issue of the Invitation series. It's Canadian Club's first ever 18-year-old whiskey. This elevated expression offers the well-known smooth, well-balanced taste of Canadian Club Classic, carefully aged and bottled at a higher proof for a full-body tasting experience. And the Canadian Club Classic 18-year-old high proof just awarded gold at the 2024 International Wine and Spirit Competition. Now, once it's gone, it's gone. Only $79.95 right now at your local Manitoba liquor mart. So pick it up for gift giving and maybe save a bottle for the cabinet as well as you get ready for the holidays. Available now at your local Manitoba liquor marts. And of course, a big happy holidays to our friends and great partners over at Wallace & Wallace, the fencing and overhead door specialists. You've seen their fences and trucks all over the city. They've been serving Manitoba since 1946. If your property needs the security and protection of a new fence, they have you covered with vinyl, ornamental, welded wire, chain link, or wood fences. And if it's time to replace your garage door, they've also got Winnipeg's largest selection of overhead garage doors, one to perfectly match your home and add value to it at the same time. Give them a call, 204-452-2700. The Wallace & Wallace team will arrange a time to come out and give you a free estimate. You can also visit them at wallacefences.com or pop down to their showroom on Lowson Crescent, just off of Kenniston. All right, let's get Remo back in here. Great. That was a real fun conversation with Kevin, and I thought he had a very interesting perspective on a guy that knows this team really well, both inside and out, and someone that has done that very difficult job of standing up for teammates before in the NHL.
Yeah, I looked up Kevin's resume on hockeyfights.com, just doing a little research before the show. 61 career fights, regular season and preseason. Was between the benches last night when everything came up. Incredible that Kevin took the time to come on and provide the insight. As you said, he's been around the Jets team now for a couple of years. He's seen the ups and downs, and in between laundry loads off that road trip to hop in and provide some insight, and seen a lot of positive comments in the chat here from Kevin. Also had some good insight on Brad Lambert. Saw him with the Memorial Cup, doing those games for TSN. Great conversation. Looking forward to having Murat on, but hopefully we can make some more time for Kevin in the future.
Listen, let's get to fan feedback for fansfirst.ca. Your number one choice for both buying and selling Winnipeg tickets on the resale market. Best part of Fans First, unlike all the other sites, no fees, period. What you see is what you pay. And as I mentioned yesterday, after almost choking on the StubHub service fees that I had to pay on that Viking ticket I got on Sunday, makes you appreciate the transparency of Fans First and what you're paying that much more. Check out the site today, and of course, use it if you have a need to sell tickets as well at fansfirst.ca. Lots coming in on our question of the day as far as, is this team tough enough Let's see. What do we got here? We may not need a fighter, but heavy players are needed for playoffs, son of Dirk. And that, I think, kind of goes to what Kevin was saying. BA, do we want Frederick as second-line center? I sure would. 40-point guy. Sandy says, need a big, gritty D-man to help the load. Scott Westman says, 5 out of 10. Just score goals. T. Konopoli, Jets toughness, 6.5 out of 10. For success, need 8 out of 10. And Gene Okerlund is wondering what Anthony Peluso is doing these days. That's the one thing, Remo, is different, that we don't really have many nuclear options still in the National Hockey League. But tell you what, it sure would have been nice to be able to tap an Anthony Peluso on the shoulder last night with what was happening. Here's DL14. Team toughness is unacceptable and has been a problem for a while now. I said for a long time, Chevy does not value toughness. Adam Lowry cannot keep fighting. He will break his hand or shoulder. Elias McCracken, I'd like the team to start to bang and crash more than focusing on fights and more hits per game. Coachy 51, yes, I don't know whether we want to think about this, but can you imagine how good this team would be with Byfuglien in the lineup? And honestly, Remis, bringing up Byfuglien, that is something that, he was irreplaceable in so many ways. But, the fact that you never really had to worry about anything when Buff was in the lineup, and you just simply can't replace that. Of course, keep your thoughts coming in. We'll get to this with Murat right away. With Fan First, fan feedback, fansfirst.ca, by fans, for fans, no fees. All right, lots of great comments in there. Keeping it going. Ticono Pauly is just loving this today. Although Ticono, I will give you this. I was, like many individuals there at the game, pumped about the win, still a bit hot about what happened in the third period. And I would be lying to you if I didn't have a conversation about a potential call-up of Bauer for a certain game on the road, January 20th at the TD Garden in Boston. There are lots of fun conversations like that. Listen, big win for the Jets first and foremost. They're getting ready for Vegas tomorrow. Practice today. Let's welcome in our good friend Murat from The Athletic. Murat, what's going on?
Hey, bud. How you doing?
I'm great. Listen, I had a fun night last night. Listen, when the home team puts up a snowman on a team like Boston, you're leaving in a good mood. But it was interesting to see how that game kind of took a turn in the third period, and that, as much as the offensive explosion for the Winnipeg Jets, was the conversation afterwards. We'll get to the third period, the toughness question and all that in a minute. But considering how on E the team looked in that third period against Columbus, how impressed were you with the performance, and in particularly Mark Scheifele driving the bus and putting the team kind of on his back early on in the game along with his line mates?
Yeah, I got to give his line mates credit too. I think that one of the ways that line got pretty, I was going to say away from it, but just plain beaten on the road trip or on the sort of times that they struggled was a lot of the transition plays where they were getting hung up at their blue line. They were turning pucks over. They weren't getting back. And they score goals directly in this game off of making smart plays at the blue line. You got Gabriel Velarde, winning plays at the offensive line, thinks that the puck is, or Boston thinks that they've won the puck off of him, but he swats the puck down to Kyle Connor, and that leads to a goal. You've got smart plays from all three players in a lot of situations that are some of the areas that they've struggled. And then, add to that a little bit of the highlight reel skill. Kyle Connor, I don't think I've ever seen somebody wait while moving faster than Kyle Connor on that one pass, the saucer pass to Mark Scheifele. Like, he's stalling that whole time looking for Scheifele to get into a lane, but he's also stick handling. He's also shoulder feinting. He's making sure that the defender is respecting him as a threat before he sauces that across. That's brilliant. Mark Scheifele's shooting. Weren't we just talking about an upper body injury not too long ago? Look how fast he's firing that puck. He has a great assist of his own later in the game. it's one of those nights, and there have been many of them, despite critics, including myself, saying, well, Connor Scheifele and Velarde have gotten outscored. They got outscored last year. Well, they're up 21-17 right now, and a lot of that is big-time plays like they made last night.
Yeah, certainly trending in a great direction after a tough start where I think it was 9-1 the wrong way. And since then, there's been, a few hiccups, but overall real strong play, and certainly last night they were there. You bring up the assist. As brilliant as the goals were, I thought that play that Mark made maybe made more of a statement than anything else. I mean, in that, when you're playing big, tough teams like that, you need to be able to pay the price. And, he sold out, took a big hit from Nikita Zadorov, but held it long enough to make a perfect play to Kyle Connor and was rewarded for it.
Yeah, and I'm glad you point out Nikita Zadorov. That's a big hitter. That's a heavy hitter. And, you saw him in the third period as well, except Adam Lowry's fight, whatever, we can get to that. But that's a heavy play. And Mark Scheifele is a player who, when he does get onto the perimeter, sometimes he's not selling out like that. I don't think, not every time. And, that might depend on game state, score, all that other sort of stuff. But on this particular night, he was playing a hard game, and his helmet popped all the way to the hash marks along the boards after that hit, but he still gets the puck over and the goal still goes in. And maybe a little fire under him. Don Sweeney, GM, Team Canada, the other side of things.
You think?
I like the way he didn't shy away from the question. Right? I can't remember who asked him, but he was asked in the post game, and he said, "Well, who the GM on the other team is." But I just want to help my team win. And the fact that he, didn't shut the whole thing down, I kind of respect the move to at least acknowledge it. I think you've seen that game. You've seen him have incredible games against the Florida Panthers. I think when Mark Scheifele has any reason to take it personally, Michael Jordan, The Last Dance style, we've seen some spectacular games from him. And that's just kind of a fun underlying storyline to Mark Scheifele's offensive output.
Before we get to the funny business in the third, let's talk about Nikita Chibrikov. Man, I thought he looked good last night. Now, everything looked pretty good when you're, routing a team like Boston 8-1. But he, this didn't look like a guy that was nervous to get in. Frankly, he certainly didn't look like a guy that was playing in his second NHL game either. How did you think he fared last night? And just thoughts on what he brings to the lineup in comparison to Brad Lambert, who's a very different player.
Yeah, such a different player. And it's kind of cool to see them developing kind of in tandem along the same schedule, more or less. I have to admit, there's a certain bias almost I have towards Nikita Chibrikov's playing style. He makes really hard plays at both blue lines. He's got an active stick on the forecheck. For a guy his size, he really initiates physicality, and he doesn't shy away from it either. So there's certain things about that style of game that just looks so obviously hardworking and committed, and you wouldn't doubt his willingness to take a hit to make a play on either blue line kind of deal. And I'm not using that as contrast for Lambert. I'm not saying that these are things Lambert would never do, but these are things I admire in Chibrikov's game. And to see him come up and have kind of an instant impact, yeah, it's garbage time, sure. But when he scores, but he's already made a couple nice plays on the power play. He made a play that eventually leads to Winnipeg's game-opening goal on the power play. He doesn't shy away from the big moments as that game gets tough and tighter. And then the treat of a Nikita Chibrikov offensive performance is always that shot. Cole Perfetti knocks a puck down, like he's been doing a lot of lately, to be clear. And Chibrikov just on the spot there. I mean, who can do that? There aren't many players who can do that in any league. And that's just fun for me. That's just a fun hockey player to watch. And, hopefully he can continue to make those impacts against Vegas and onward.
He, of course, is here for the time being while Nikolai Ehlers repairs. Any update today on Ehlers and where he's at? We're kind of mentioning yesterday on the program that I'm sure he'd love to play on Saturday night against his old pal Patrick Laine, who's looking pretty good with the Habs.
Yeah, that would be a fun one too, right? He's been on the ice by himself in advance of morning skate yesterday and then practice again today. Now, I should be clear, I'm nursing something as well, so I wasn't at practice breathing on your favorite players with my cold or whatever I've got going on here. So,
thank you.
If Scott Arniel has said something to update the fact that he's still not available, and certainly he wasn't on the ice, I don't know it just as we're talking.
Yeah, but he's not at practice yet. Well, we'll see. I mean, the fact of the matter is, and I thought Kevin did a really interesting job of, we were talking about, Logan Stanley being in and Ville Heinola right now, and he said pretty clearly, like on every given night, is the team dressing the lineup that probably gives them the best chance to win? Probably not necessarily, but they're learning about these players and to make those tough decisions later on in the year. With an injury like the one that the team's going through with Nikolai Ehlers, it does provide, opportunity. Brad Lambert got a chance to get a run of games. And I think these next couple, particularly because of the opposition, last night Boston, tomorrow night Vegas, there's a unique opportunity for Chibrikov, I think, because of the versatility where he could play in the lineup, to show that, he might be ready to help this team win games sooner as opposed to later, even with a healthy Ehlers back.
Yeah, and it's when you make plays that help control the game, even if you're not scoring, that he's not going to hurt you. I don't think that he's going to hurt. There might be defensive situations where, okay, there's bigger or faster players than he's used to in terms of coverage, but those moments that control territory, and I obsess over the blue lines, exits and entries. You can control how a game looks. Chibrikov gets those right. He gets those moments right, and that's something I've been impressed with him by for a while. The offense is a bonus. Certainly if he does stick, even after Ehlers gets healthy, he's not being looked at as one of the top 6 or 5 offensive options on the Winnipeg Jets, because there are other quality offensive players. But I think that he's got the opportunity to show he can do things at an NHL level. It may also just be that the Jets are rotating through their top forward prospects as Ehlers works his way back to health, but it is information. And whether it's this year down the stretch, whether it's next year, as Ehlers' future is even more uncertain next year, then they've learned a little bit more. And I think that that's an approach, Huss, that the Jets are taking, I want to say holistically. I don't think it's just Chibrikov and Lambert with respect to that forward position or Ehlers' uncertain future. I think that's part of why, though I haven't heard Arniel say the word, there's a rotation on defense. Stanley, Heinola, Miller on merit should be in there. Dylan Coghlan played a good game, but I think they are gathering information finally about some of these players to sort of make some longer-term decisions. I don't know if you read my prospect piece over the weekend, but some of the people that I talked to for that sort of wondered to me out loud if Stanley and Heinola might be almost making last stands of sorts on this team, because the Jets are finally, I guess, giving both of them long looks. I don't know if it's quite to that extent, but I do know Arniel's approach to this rotation has given him more looks at younger players than we're used to seeing from Jets coaches.
I kind of agree with that. And, and it's because of where they're at in their careers. I mean, spent the time in, for Ville, listen, he's had the terrible luck for the last couple of years, but the fact of the matter is that both of these players are no longer waivers exempt. If they're not playing and they're on the roster, you're either trading them or you're exposing them to waivers if they're not on the team. So I think that's exactly what's going on right now. And listen, people have different opinions of both of those players. It's so funny when you talk to fans, not necessarily people on social media or in the chat room, but just at the games, in between periods, talking to people, how the perception of players is so different from individual to individual. And, it's easy to sort of get caught up in maybe the certain line of thinking amongst, the people that you're seeing in your feed. I guarantee you talk to enough people, you'll see some very differing opinions on those guys. And I would imagine some of those differing opinions might even be in the front office right now. And because of the decisions that are going to need to be made this season moving forward, who's in the playoffs, who's a regular for the Winnipeg Jets, this is the time for both of those guys to show that and to put their best foot forward as not only members of the team, but guys that, will give them the best chance, when you continue on down the road. Now, Murat, in the third period, as the Jets kept on lighting up Jeremy Swayman, the Bruins decided to get a little nasty. Now, I really believe that this started with the McAvoy hit on Cole Perfetti to the head, which he was penalized, and of course the Jets scored on the power play on. And personally, I was kind of hoping that whatever happened would be initiated by the Jets because of what happened to Perfetti. That certainly wasn't it. How did you see the start of it all with Trent Frederick going after David Gustafson of all people?
I mean, yeah, that's an interesting one. I haven't thought too much about the McAvoy on Perfetti hit. And without having it in front of me, if we can just assume Perfetti's line mates were Nemesnikov and Chibrikov, were they both on the ice at the same time? You're not really expecting either one of them. Maybe Nemesnikov, though. I mean, these are feisty players, though not heavyweights, to be sure. And I don't know which defense pair was on the ice at that time. So I wonder about that. Maybe they were satisfied by the penalty, but the Jets do want to stick up for each other. That's what Scheifele told us he was so proud of the guys for after the game. That's what they were all proud of, I think, the way they stood up for each other. On the Trent Frederick thing, it's fascinating to me. Like, it's normal for the Bruins to play him after a goal against. Like, he was getting a regular rotation of his shifts. That wasn't the first time he followed a Jets goal with the Trent Frederick shift. That's fine. He's a hockey player. He's not just a face puncher. You know what I mean? He's a fine hockey player. And then why, though? That's what I don't have is at 6'1", what is he doing? Like, what is he meant to accomplish by that? Is that the pushback and physicality? Is he trying to show up for his new coach? Is he trying to just give Boston something to go forward in the next game? Like, or did he just kind of lose it? I'm really not sure, and I haven't talked to anybody on that side. Certainly, he either displayed a complete lack of knowledge of David Gustafson in asking for that fight, because that was Gustafson's first of his career. I guess Trent Frederick had 38 prior to that, or he didn't care, or who knows what. And then the fascinating thing for me is, like, from my seat in the press box, I'm like, well, if you're David Gustafson, why don't you just say no? Gustafson seemed to, he agreed to the fight. His gloves are off. They're squared off before that punch drops him. But I also understand he's on the edge of the roster. He's a big guy. He's being challenged by somebody with more experience than he has. There's maybe a social cost to saying no in that situation.
Absolutely there is.
So it's not as simple as me sitting here being like, well, just don't do it, right? Like there's a lot there. So yeah, I'm sure the Jets were the most angry because, first of all, Gustafson gets hurt and he's in concussion protocol now. But also because of maybe the lack of awareness on Trent Frederick's point. If it's 6-1 and there's, 12 and a half minutes left in the game at that time, or something close to that, at least half a period, more or less, it doesn't have to be Gustafson. There are other players and other moments, right? It doesn't have to be the face-off following that power play goal. So there's a lot not to like. And I almost felt for Adam Lowry because I'm asking him after, well, so whose fault is that? Is it on Frederick to just pick a better opponent? Is it on Gustafson to say no? And he sort of gray areaed it because he sort of maybe recognizes the bigger picture of it all within the context of an NHL culture where fights are part of the culture.
Yeah, so, he was being pretty diplomatic on that answer because if you go to the beginning of it, he was pretty clear. He said, hey, the guys that dropped the gloves know who the other guys are doing that. And without saying it as much, he basically said that was a chicken bleep move to go after David Gustafson of all people. I mean, there's plenty of guys on the ice you can go after. I don't think it's commonplace for NHL tough guys when their team's getting run out of the barn to decide to make a statement by going up against some Swede that's never dropped the gloves in their entire life. I mean, with all due respect to David, and listen, for Gus, you nailed it. Like, he's in there, he's trying to show that he's a big part of this team. He's barely played because of how good the fourth line has been in. If he goes in there and just backs down and whimpers away, I think there's a lot of people that would give him the business on that. And I think that, he probably earned some respect amongst his teammates for sure. And they mentioned that by standing up for himself. But I can't say it any other way. It was complete bush league that, they're going after a player like that. And I think that if you pump true serum into most of the tougher players in the National Hockey League, they would tell you the exact same thing. And Lowry, in a very diplomatic way, sort of stated that right out of the gate last night after his presser.
That's true. He did say that prior to the question that I asked. And it does look, there was, how do I want to say this? There was a lot of noise coming from like the owner's box following that fight. There was a lot of noise. Like, I didn't know what was said or anything like that, but like the team, let's put it this way, the team from top to bottom probably all felt like that was a ridiculous decision by Trent Frederic. I think that's fair to say. Lowry also by later saying, well, Zadorov didn't have to give me the fight, but I appreciate that he did, kind of deal. That to me, that's almost the opposite of where Frederic, I guess he's conveying a respect for Zadorov that he's not conveying for Frederic's decision in that situation. It's really tough for a 13th forward to be in that situation. Bear with me on this, but a couple games ago, and I wish my memory were sharper, but Ville Heinola and Logan Stanley were on the ice for a 3-on-2 rush. It didn't go well. They got beat. There's a goal that goes in, and Logan Stanley fights right after. Can you put that in better context than I can? Who was it against? What happened there?
That was in the Buffalo game, I think.
Okay, we'll go with that. Maybe somebody in the chat has a better memory than me, and I apologize here. But Logan Stanley fights right after that. And for me, taking an extremely cynical approach to that fight, Logan Stanley just got beat in coverage in that moment. He read a rush wrong. He didn't take away the stick on the eventual goal scorer on that play. Buffalo rings. Okay. And then his next shift out, or the next opportunity he's fighting, demonstrating, in my mind, his value to the team in a way. As a possible 6, as a possible 7 defenseman, by taking that next fight, he's sort of saying, well, look what role I can play on this team that honestly, who else can do this right now? And so when you have a player perhaps on the periphery of the roster, and I think Stanley obviously has gotten more games than Gustafsson has, they look for opportunities to show value. Gustafsson did obviously not seek this out. Like that's clear. But that position where he's saying yes to a situation he doesn't want to be in, and then he gets dropped on the first punch. And now look at the consequences. Concussion protocol, I mean, probably he'll be fine in a little while, but there's a chance that this has long-term implications for him as well.
Absolutely.
Because of a decision that somebody made in a 6-1 game. I understand the anger, to be honest. It makes sense, the anger.
Well, and it brings up a question about, can Logan Stanley be that guy to support Adam Lowry? Do they need more toughness? Because this is the sort of thing that you're going to get, and we're going to get a chance to see Vegas tomorrow night, who's not shy to pull stunts like that as well. Although I think for the most part, those guys have a little bit more respect for the game to pick their spots like Trent Frederic did last night. Murat, always great having you on the program. Should be a great one tomorrow night. Appreciate you jumping on, and I will look forward to more of your continued Jets coverage at theathletic.com.
Thanks very much, Thanks for having me.
Appreciate it. All right. We'll have more. Keep the chat coming. By the way, I do see Tijuana Pauly in chat. Was Stan's fault for not stepping up for Gus? Bauer or a real enforcer would have. We know that the president of the Bauer fan club is always with us in Tijuana Pauly. But listen, that game last night, I think, does give, certainly a lot to the conversation about, the mix of this Jets team and what they're going to need to go toe-to-toe in many different ways with some of the bigger, stronger, tougher teams in the National Hockey League, despite their ability to put up a snowman on a team like the Boston Bruins. Listen, we're going to talk some baseball right now. Big news in the hot stove season, if you will. Josh Goldberg's going to join us. But just as we do that, let's crack a cold one. 19-teen, our favorite. A big shout out from our friends at Little Brown Jug to all of you.
Day out, learning new techniques, approaching new concepts, and living out the thrill of achieving your goals. Building a craft beer is no different. While you spend your hours on the ice, we spend ours here, brewing our trademark beer. Again, and again. Here's to pushing the status quo and challenging ourselves to build something memorable. 1919 by Little Brown Jug.
Of course, you can get Little Brown Jug on tap over at Boston Pizza, Polo Park, and a few of the other BPs. But speaking of the holidays, right now, when you buy a $50 Boston Pizza gift card, you'll receive a free $10 bonus card. And if you have a long list or need to buy for a company or office, you'll get an additional 10% in gift cards with any purchase of $1,000 or more, meaning a 30% bonus on all gift card orders of $1,000. BP is also a great place to have your holiday party. Try the new holiday menu in the dining room or have a casual party in their sports bar, or you can have the BP catering team set up and serve your office. Check out the new holiday menu items, the spicy shrimp fettuccine and the ribbon wing duo available right now at your local Boston Pizza. And, it's funny, we got Josh on to talk about big moves in Major League Baseball. You might be waiting a few days to get that new jersey because of all the player movement right now. But whether you're looking for a new Jays jersey, some Jets gear to throw under the tree, some exclusive Bomber merchandise, NFL, NHL, Major League Baseball, NBA, international soccer, the greatest spot, maybe anywhere, frankly, with the size of Royal Sports to pick up your fan gear is Royal, just in time for Christmas. There's the biggest hockey department in town. And of course, so many great gift ideas over on the King's Skate, Snow, and Surf side. Their Herschel department, the Yeti display, it's all there. You got to see it to believe it, and take care of that whole list with one trip to Royal Sports at 750 Pembina Highway. Follow them on Instagram as well, at Royal Sports Winnipeg, for the latest merchandise drops and sale information and some great holiday gift ideas as well. All right, let's welcome in our pal Josh Goldberg for the latest on what's already been a pretty crazy baseball offseason. Josh, what's up, buddy? How are you?
Good to talk to you, Huss. Yeah, a lot going on, obviously, with the winter meetings in full swing. Lots of moves. Jays made one, so it's been busy.
I had to laugh, and I retweeted your tweet yesterday because the Jays did make a move, which we'll get into. But as you mentioned, what was it? At this point, I do feel we've reached a point with this front office where they could get prime Barry Bonds for a potato and there would still be a lot of anger. The PR battle is a tough one right now for Atkins and Shapiro, isn't it?
Yeah, I would say for the most part, like there's a fraction or a piece of the fan base that, and deservedly so, has just kind of said, like, there's not really anything you can do at this point, short of winning the World Series this year, that is going to really change my opinion of you. And I get it. They've won 0 playoff games. They haven't really delivered in the ways that they advertised. So I totally get it. I'm generally a reserve judgment until the offseason is not completely done, but until major business is done. There's still so much to be done league-wide. I know a lot has already happened, but there are still a lot of big names on the free agent board. There are still balls in the air when it comes to trade chips as well. Like, I just think it's too early to make a declaration one way or the other for a lot of teams, particularly the Blue Jays, about what their prospects are in terms of what their roster looks like heading into next season.
Well, let's talk about the big move that the Jays made yesterday, trading with Cleveland and acquiring Gold Glove second baseman Andres Jimenez and a right-handed reliever Nick Sandin for a guy that was pretty popular last year when he showed up, Spencer Horowitz going in, and a minor league outfielder. What are the Jays getting, and what do you make of what they gave up to get it?
It was a really surprising trade, and honestly, it probably shouldn't be because it kind of fits their MO in terms of Jimenez is a great defensive player, one of the best, maybe the best defensive second baseman in baseball. He can run. He's stolen 30 bases each of the last 2 years. But there's some real question marks about whether he can hit. He had one great season in 2022, made an all-star team, and had the best offensive season of his career by far. That is really looking like an outlier, and they are already talking about how there's stuff in his bat that they like. And I kind of rolled my eyes, and I know a lot of Blue Jays fans rolled their eyes when they see that and hear that, because they kind of said a lot of the same things when they acquired Dalton Varsho, and he just hasn't materialized offensively. Like he just hasn't been good offensively. He's been amazing defensively, but in what they were hoping to unlock in his swing and what he could do at the plate hasn't happened. And it appears that they're taking another stab at it with Jimenez. He's your second baseman. I think he's a valuable player, but I need more. Like, if this is their biggest move of the offseason, I could fully get on board and endorse being not happy. Like, I don't think that this is a real needle mover. It's not a bad table setter if there are other major moves to come. I don't think they paid a particularly high price. Like, I know Spencer Horwitz had some good moments last year. He was probably the second best hitter on the team last season, which I think really hammers home how bleak it was. Yeah, how bleak it was last year. But defensively, I don't know if he has a home, really. Like, it didn't work at second base. Maybe he's a first baseman. Maybe he's a DH. I don't know how much power there is in that bat. Like, I don't think he's somebody who's going to hit 30 home runs, and will he even hit 25? I think there's some question marks. He's a little bit older. He's 27. To get a Gold Glove second baseman, yes, there are some concerns about Jimenez's contract and how much he's going to be making, but he's still 26. Like, I think he can return some decent value. I don't think he's going to leap off the page and be a foundational piece. But again, if something else comes from it, then I like it more. But if it's their major move, then, there's some real tough questions need to be asked and answered of the front office.
Now, listen, before we talk about the other moves that the Jays have been reportedly in on and unsuccessful and what might come, I don't think we can really have this conversation about the future of the Jays without talking about the two guys that have been cornerstones for the last number of years in Bo Bichette and Vlad Guerrero Jr., who are both going into the final years of their deal. Bo had a miserable season last year. Vladdy seemed to really come around, and I think that was sort of a bit of a flip-flop from maybe where we were 12 or 18 months ago. Where are things at with Bo and Vlad? And in your opinion, what are the likelihood there's a new contract for either?
So it is fascinating, the kind of roller coaster we've ridden with these two. Like you said, 12, 18 months ago, the conversation was completely flipped. It was pay Bichette, and if Guerrero takes a reasonable deal, okay, keep him around, but maybe look to move him. And then, obviously last season happened and the conversation's completely flipped. And now I entered the offseason pretty optimistic that they would get Guerrero done. And I'm not necessarily pessimistic now, but I'm probably a bit less optimistic than I was, because he's seeing what's out there. He's not on Juan Soto's level. He's a first baseman. He's not going to get $700+ million. But he's probably thinking he could get, I don't know, at least $400 million, if not a little bit more. And are the Blue Jays really going to do that? Maybe it's a negotiating tactic, but they haven't really been over the top in their praise of him. It just seems like for some reason with this front office, they're hesitant to really commit to him being the type of player that I think a lot of people see him as. Yes, there's been some inconsistency in his career at the plate, but when he's at his best, he's probably one of the 5 to 10 best hitters in baseball. So you're in a really tough spot here, because we're not that far away from the reality of potentially both of these guys walking for a compensation draft pick. Bichette to me is gone. Like, I don't see a scenario in which he's signing a deal. It's certainly not this offseason, because his value is as low as it's ever been. And the likelihood of generally free agents to be in baseball don't seem to sign in season that often. They often set an opening day deadline, and if a deal's not done, then it's pretty tough to see it getting done in season. And then you're hoping to circle back once they've hit the open market, and then you're allowing other teams to get into the fray. And I just think Bichette, the writing's been on the wall for me for some time that he was probably going to end up elsewhere. And like, if you don't have both of these guys signed by opening day, I don't really know, or at least one of these guys or both of these guys are unsigned on opening day. I just don't know what kind of message that really sends to your fan base, because like, are you committing to a rebuild? because, the moves that we're seeing right now, like they bring in Jimmy Garcia, a veteran reliever. I just don't really know what the direction is if both of those guys are unsigned come opening day. Like, I just don't really know what the plan is if you're leaving that level of important business up in the air heading into another really important season for them.
What would you say the likelihood is of Bo even being on the roster on opening day?
I still think high. I would still put it at least 80%, if not higher, because I just don't foresee a situation in which a team is going to make an offer based on, like, he's had some injury stuff and has struggled at the plate, even back into the second half of 2023. So I think teams that might be interested in him probably want to see 75, 100 good games of production and performance and good health before they consider, giving up legitimate assets. And I think there's a realistic possibility that if he gets moved closer to the deadline or at the deadline, the return's not going to be crazy high. We're talking about a rental, most likely. Defensively, there's some question marks there. We'll see what he does offensively, but like the cows left the barn a little bit for if Blue Jays fans are expecting a Bo Bichette trade to really set them up with some building blocks for the future. I mean, maybe that ends up happening, but I'm skeptical that would be the case.
Listen, the biggest deal that has been signed is this insane deal with the Mets that Juan Soto signed. What do you make of the price that the Mets paid to get him, the fact that he went to the Mets, and what do we know about how in the Jays were and what they were willing to do, and what does that tell us about, how aggressive they might be to improve the team?
Yeah, so the Jays stuff with Soto's been all over the place. There have been people who said they offered less than $700 million, and there have been people who have said they offered maybe as much, if not a little bit more, or a little bit less than the Mets did. So I'm not really sure what to make of it. And as far as what it might mean for the rest of their offseason, like Ohtani last year, they seem to have been operating under two lanes where one was they had this special budget for these types of players. And then the other one where they're not pinching pennies, but they're more mindful of the CBT thresholds and not necessarily blowing past it and being more selective in terms of how they spend. And like, does that take them out of the bidding of Anthony Santander from the Orioles or Corbin Burns? We'll see. Like, again, the reporting's been conflicting. Some people say they're in, other people say they'd be surprised if that was the case. So it's really hard to get a read on where the Blue Jays kind of stand in terms of what the budget is heading into next year. And as far as the Soto deal, like, let's call a spade a spade. It's going to be an overpay, but nobody's going to care if he gives you at least 5 or 6 years of elite production, wins a World Series or two, maybe mixes in an MVP. Like, he doesn't provide much, if anything, defensively, but his bat is just so good that at the end of the day, it's just money. And if you're a rich owner like Steve Cohen, money is no object. So, like, even if down the road it is more of an issue and he's not really providing much value, then whatever. Like, it's just money. You can spend money elsewhere to maybe cover up some of the areas of weakness that he might be showing. So, like, if I'm a Mets fan, I'm tickled pink. Like, it's as good as it gets. And who cares about how many years and how much money you ended up committing, because you got one of the best players in recent memory on your team for quite a long time.
Josh Goldberg is with us. You can check out the DFA pod at DFA_pod as well, and give him a follow on Twitter, or X, at JGoldberg12. After what happened with Ohtani last year and the Jays sort of seemingly getting played a little bit, and the hopes up of the fan base the way that it was, it was interesting to hear that the Jays were sort of in the mix for Soto, and you don't know whether they're just getting played by the Scott Borases of the world, using Rogers' money to up other offers. But considering the way things have gone, how badly do Atkins and Shapiro need a big win in this offseason for free agency?
I can't think of a front office needing anything more than they need something good to happen. And Like I said, I still think that there's a portion of the fan base, again, deservedly so, that no matter what they do, there's still going to be, there's been hopes before and there's still 0 playoff wins to show for it. But I think short of adding a big power bat, bolstering the bullpen a little bit more, bringing in another starting pitcher, people are going to be underwhelmed. Like, that was the situation heading into the offseason. There's a lot of work to do. There's a reason this team was in the basement of the division for the first time in over a decade last year and won 74 games. Like, the roster wasn't very good. And yeah, it's a little bit better after the moves that were made on Tuesday, but there's still a ton of work to do. They're not a piece away. They're a couple of pieces away from being just in the mix, because the American League East is still going to be brutal. I know that Soto's gone and the Orioles haven't done anything. Red Sox just got Garrett Crochet from the White Sox. The Yankees brought in Max Fried. I'm sure the Orioles, they signed Tyler O'Neill. It's going to be tough. So unless you really distinguish yourself, you're going to be fighting with probably the Rays for 4th or 5th place in the division. And, that's just not acceptable considering where expectations have been and how long this front office has been in charge. If you're going so clearly backwards after this long, nobody rightfully is going to stand for that.
What, in your opinion, what's the best case scenario moving forward for the Jays? I mean, what would the target at the top of their list be? And how might they go about making something like that happen?
So I think it depends how realistic we want to be. Like, if money is not really any object, it's go sign Corbin Burns and go sign Santander, and there you go. You've got a ace starter and you've got a middle of the order corner outfield power bat. And I think one of those is more likely than the other. But if you're not making one of those things happen, you're really narrowing your avenue to meaningfully improve. Then you're kind of hoping for values to emerge into January, which they've tried to do the last couple of years, and it just hasn't worked. And that's the thing with free agency. You got to get uncomfortable. You got to take positions on players that you feel as though can make your team better. And if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. But you're not going to get the top tier players unless you're really willing to go out on a limb. And they've done that sometimes, but they haven't quite consistently done it enough. There's been lots of talk about commitment from ownership and wanting to be aggressive. And like, that's all fine and dandy and quotes are great, but nobody's going to care until you actually do it and it has some tangible results. So they got to make a major splash or fans are rightfully going to be underwhelmed. And the prospect for being competitive in 2025 isn't going to be great.
Oh, man, it's going to be an interesting offseason. I'll tell you what. I mean, you kind of nailed it. There is just so much angst, I think, among Jays fans and such a lack of belief in the guys running the ship. I do wonder how things are going to look considering the price tag it's taken to get into that beautiful new stadium and the fact that this team, at least right now, does not seem to be close to a legitimate contender right now in the AL.
Yeah, I think the ticket situation is, considering they were struggling last year. I know season ticket renewals. I know some people who were not interested in it after last year, and you have all those renovations. It's not going to be good if the team goes into a bit of a downturn. That's really going to hurt the revenues. And the only way for you to pay off something like that is to continually invest in the team and ensure that the team's competitive, so butts are in the seats and revenues are good. And they have to do that. And fans, rightfully so. Things are expensive in the world now. Why are you going to spend some of your hard-earned money to go watch a 4th or 5th place team that hasn't committed to their best players? They haven't signed Vladimir Guerrero Jr. So fans are rightfully saying, well, why should I sign with you and give you hundreds, if not thousands of dollars for season tickets? It's an easy call to say no. So they have work to do on the field, obviously, in terms of building a product, but they have work to do off the field in terms of earning back some of the goodwill and trust from the fans that's kind of evaporated over the last couple of years.
I guess they'll throw in a few more Looney Dog nights and try and fill the ballpark that way. Josh, great stuff, buddy. Have a great holiday season. Thanks so much for doing this.
Yeah, happy holidays, Haas. Talk to you soon.
Good stuff. At J Goldberg 12, there's Josh Goldberg, and as I mentioned, check out the DFA podcast. Check it out on Twitter with links at DFA_pod. All right, we are going to get to the Coolbet lines in a minute, but we are, of course, the Jets play tomorrow against the Vegas Golden Knights. Should be a great one. Saturday night against the Habs. Always a fun night in the building. And then next Saturday, it is the Home for the Holidays game. And it is our next WST game of the month, the WST holiday party, if you will, at Canada Life Center. You're all invited. What we'd love for you to do is click the link in the description. Remis, if you maybe want to throw it in the chat. And if you're listening on the podcast, it's winnipegjets.com/WST. Grab your tickets with us in section 316 at a special price. You'll get a free beverage included with your ticket that you'll be able to use through your Jets 360 app. We'll get together in the hangar bar outside 316, get festive, and then hopefully see the Winnipeg Jets deliver season's beatings to the Minnesota Wild and sweep their head-to-head series this year. Hard to believe it's the last game between the Jets and Wild this year, coming up a week Saturday. So Home for the Holidays game, there's going to be tons of great giveaways and prizes as well. So hopefully we'll see you there for our next WST game of the month. Again, winnipegjets.com/WST. Grab your crew, grab a few friends, grab your tickets, and we will see you then. One other thing I should mention with the Jets, they do have a great little promo on right now with the holiday bundle. It is the perfect gift for your loved ones. $109 plus tax gets you 2 tickets and a toque, and you've got 6 games to choose from. The Predators on January 7th, the Canucks on January 14th, Calgary January 26th, the Islanders February 7th, Sharks February 24th, and the Ducks April 16th, Fan Appreciation Night. Those deals are available at Jets Gear right now. Again, the holiday bundle, 2 tickets, 1 toque, $109 plus tax, 6 possible games. But, that's a nice little stocking stuffer or a present for the Jets fan and your family. But before Christmas, let's do it upright, holiday style with Winnipeg Sports Talk, December 21st. Get your tickets and join us. And Reem, these next few games at home are going to be awesome. I mean, I can't wait for tomorrow against Vegas and Saturday against the Habs. But ever since the last game against Minnesota, we've been looking forward to these teams getting after it one more time. And a Saturday night heading into the holidays with the WST crew, what could be better?
Yeah, that's actually a really good deal, just comparing the Ticketmaster price to the price you can get with us, winnipegjets.com/WST for that game against Minnesota. I know there's going to be a lot of Santas there. Coach Keyser, winner of the marble race, emailing me. He said, don't get confused by the other Santa group. His is the original Santa group, and they're 3-0 on fan versus fan. They're very...
Yes.
He's very enthusiastic about that, but I can't wait to go to that game against Minnesota, who we really do not like. It's going to be a fantastic event, and we talked about shenanigans last night's game. Ryan Hartman, the president of the Jets, he's the guy the Jets fans hate the most. Marcus Foligno, I think he's up there too. I'm looking forward to, because it'll be almost a year from the day where we talked about the code, where Ryan Hartman had talking about the code and picking on non-fighters / Cole Perfetti in the face off the face-off. So I haven't forgot about that one, Hustler. And again, 2 teams. But aside from all that garbage, it is 2 teams, number 1 and number 2 in the NHL, going at it on a Saturday night. That's gonna be fun.
Yeah, let's fill that sucker. The section. Hopefully, we'll see you on the 21st. All right. Let's get to the Coolbet lines. And shout out to anyone that rode with me on the WST parlay yesterday. And it was a banger. 8-1 plus 800. We had the Jets to win. If you recall yesterday, I said big game from Hellebuck coming up. We're taking Bruins under 2.5 goals, so 2 goals or less. And we added in the Niederreiter and Pionk points. And you should have seen the smile on my face, Rima, when they announced the first goal, Vlad, from Nino and Pionk, and I figured that just might really be my night.
Okay, you announced this parlay yesterday, and you're like, we're going to get a little aggressive. And I was like, I don't know, Huss. I don't know how I feel about this one. And then, when you saw the first goal, Agnita Ryder maybe barely touched it, but just enough to send it over to Nemestikov after Pionk had the blast off the boards to Nino. I knew you were on track for a great night, and that's a great hit. So,
And the funny
done.
thing was, it's 6-1 in the third period. I'm like, okay, this is not over because we need under 2 goals, two or less for the Bruins. So we got it through. And that was just part of maybe the greatest day in the history of the lock shop. We made 4 wagers yesterday. We took for the community, Edmonton and Winnipeg, lock shoppers, WST, EST. That was plus 213. We had the Avalanche, the Kings, and the Wild on the partner parlay. That was boosted to 5-1, plus 500. That cashed. Of course, the WST parlay that came through. And then Lock Shop legend Rod Z, who always comes with all of these stats, he really liked Florida. And I mentioned that I liked Philly in Columbus after Columbus was coming back from this long road trip. Well, we added those two to the partner parlay and cashed that one at 14-1. So the account is flush. We're ready for the weekend. Big Thursday tomorrow. But don't forget, next Tuesday, the night the Jets are playing the San Jose Sharks, is going to be our next Lock Shop Poker Open. It'll be a Tuesday night, a 9 p.m. start, so we can sort of get into the tourney, watch the game at the same time. If you played in one of the tourneys before, you know how much fun we've had. If you haven't, why don't you join us? Go to coolbet.com, click on poker, download the poker app, and you'll be able to go in to tournaments, search Lock Shop, enter for the tourney, and we'll see you on Tuesday. Nick Lyman, the big winner last week, he's got the belt. He will be defending it. So hopefully we'll see Nick and we can take a shot at him. We've had a few WST winners so far. Nick has won. Eagle Eyes won as well. You, of course, were second in one of the tourneys. Randy D, who's now known as Randy River, as well. So anyways, should be a lot of fun joining us tomorrow if you want to get in it. All right, slow night tonight in the National Hockey League. We've just got the 2 games, and those games are the someone's got to win this game between the Rangers, 2-8 in their last 10, and the Buffalo Sabres, 7 straight losses. Both of these teams need this one so badly, Reem. Rangers minus 143, favorites on the road, and the Buffalo Sabres, who, they don't have any palm trees, and the fans are now bringing palm trees and tropical shirts, still a home dog. What a scene that's going on in Buffalo right now.
Yeah, well, I see a lot of memes out there about, Buffalo not having made the playoffs since, I think, 2011. Which is a long time ago now, and people are making jokes. And GM Kevin Adams, first GM role in the NHL, is coming out and saying how hard it is to bring quality players to Buffalo, and they don't have low tax rates and palm trees, and people don't want to play. Well, you had good players. You had Jack Eichel, Stanley Cup champion. You had Sam Reinhart, also a Stanley Cup champion. Oh, you had Ryan O'Reilly, Stanley Cup champion as well. So you're seeing all these players who were in Buffalo and leaving and then having great success. Buffalo fans not happy. Want to remember the good times, like when Scott O'Neill was an assistant coach there, 2006. He mentioned earlier this week last week when they went there. I mean, that team should have won the cup, but they had so many injuries on defense. Carolina won in Game 7 in the East Final and then beat Edmonton. But the Rangers too, Chris Drury coming out and pounding the table and saying, we're going to make changes here. We're going to trade Kreider and Trouba. And the team has gone in the tank since, and they traded Trouba. And he's playing tonight as well. So it's not going good for either team. I took the Rangers yesterday, and it didn't go well. So I don't know what to make of this one. Guess the Sabres take the home team?
Now, you know what? We talked about it. I was liking Ottawa tonight. Ottawa's a pretty big home favorite against the Ducks. The line on that one is Ottawa minus 227, Anaheim plus 190. So with only 2 games, we're going to get a little aggressive, much like we did yesterday. We're going puck line Rangers, puck line Sens. So Rangers to win by 2, Sens to win by 2. That one from plus 467 boosted to plus 537. It's the top combo card on the board when you go to coolbet.com. Speaking of lines, with only 2 games tonight, huge game day tomorrow in the National Hockey League. So we'll definitely have to put something together for the Jets Vegas game. But man, a big game in the NFC West tomorrow for Thursday Night Football. Niners at home to the Rams. San Francisco a 3-point favorite, minus 154 on the money line. And the Rams, Remo, coming off that massive win over the Buffalo Bills. Looking to push the Seattle Seahawks at the top of the division or get closer to a wild card with a win at 7-6. And a Rams win would pretty much officially put a fork or a stake, if you will, through the San Francisco 49ers, who are on life support.
A couple big games this week. And yeah, I'm curious what San Francisco team we're going to see. The one that beat up on the Bears, or the one that, hasn't looked that great most of the time this year. The Rams were in that crazy game coming out victorious against the Bills with the Josh Allen game where what he set a record for fantasy points by a quarterback. It's a really important one where he had the 3 rushing, 3 passing touchdowns. So I'm curious, over under 50? We've had a good string here, Huss, of entertaining Thursday night games. I've been ripping on Thursday night games for a while, saying they're all duds. But we had the Jameis Snow game. What was the one last week?
That was a Monday nighter.
The
Thursday nighter last week.
The Snow game was when they played Pittsburgh. The Monday, wasn't it?
Oh, there was 2 snow games.
Yeah, there's been a couple snow games.
The Sunday snow game was the Bills.
Yeah,
Niner game.
But there was the Thursday Pittsburgh Cleveland one. And the Monday one was Cleveland Broncos.
Yes, of course. That was the Jameis game. So we've had some fun primetime games. Anyways, we'll hit that tomorrow in the lock shop and on tomorrow's show as well. Excuse me. If you haven't already played a Coolbet, use the promo code WST for a 100% bonus. Up to $200 on your first deposit.
It was Green Bay, Detroit last week. Detroit 130. That was a great game.
Yes,
and then before that we had
the Jets were playing Buffalo.
Yeah, we had Vegas, KC. That was also a great game. Right, Huss?
Yeah, absolutely.
You missed you missed Connor's rant about the Chiefs on Monday.
Listen,
how do they keep doing this?
There's a lot of people that are so mad right now. And listen, I just hope that the Chiefs can keep making them mad. Some of the videos of people that were like streaming during the Charger game when Mahomes made those plays on the 3rd downs to prevent the Chargers from getting the ball back, and then the doink and in. I mean, it's just some absolutely incredible entertainment. We'll talk some NFL over the next couple of days, but of course tomorrow the big focus is on our pal Gary Lawless and the Vegas Golden Knights coming to town.
Yeah, a couple of things I want to bring up as we wind the show down. A lot of comments in the chat today about your shirt. A bit of a different one that we've seen. Looks really nice, and I was on the Jets social media watching the game. A lot of promos for the Darius Rucker collection. One, did not know that Darius Rucker, singer of Hootie and the Blowfish and Country Star, had his own clothing line, but I guess they've collaborated, the Jets and Darius Rucker, and it was collaborated on some clothing. It was the feature of the game. This looks exactly like what you're wearing, Huss, but it in fact is not. Look how good that is.
Darius Rucker rocking a Jets shirt. Well, I may have to check it out. No, I told you that I went for my first trip to Costco in 15 years, and as I was running around, I saw this big bin of these shirts, and like the inside of it, I don't know if you can see this, but it's sort of furry and dark. Very, very warm, basically. So, like right now, I was running around. I was out on the deck for a minute. I just put it on, and very comfortable, very warm. We're in survival mode for the next couple of months here in the Peg. So I put it on, and then I guess I just didn't take it off. So, yes,
well done.
New look.
Well,
a house coat. I don't know what you would call this, but
it looks good. I was wondering that. When I saw you pop in for a call this morning, I was like, is that the Darius Rucker shirt? Because, I was talking about it with people in the Winnipeg Sports Talk Discord. We're chatting all the time. And we're like, I didn't know Darius Rucker was a clothing designer. And then started rattling off all my favorite Hootie and the Blowfish songs. But it looks good, Huss. So I had to give a shout out. I was getting some attention.
I'll check out the Darius Rucker as well. With good feedback on this, maybe I'll say that this is probably a lot warmer than the Darius Rucker collection. But were people asking about your shoulder? I thought maybe you got salamied.
Oh, I got a handprint.
Like
I don't know what that is. I was at the dentist this morning. Maybe something from that. I don't know. Is that related?
It could be. It could be.
Maybe something from the chair. I don't know. Maybe something rubbed off on me. Was there some sugar?
The dentist. I got to go to the dentist right now. I've been putting that off. Speaking of guys that might have to go to the dentist, the guys that fought Biz.
We got to talk about this.
The video was released yesterday by the Scottsdale PD. All sorts of body cam footage of the interviews with all the Scottsdale Sixes, they're calling them, as well as Biz. I got to tell you, when you look through this and see what happened and how it all spiraled, just props to Biz Nasty for being a guy that actually stood up for people that were in harm's way. And I mean, my God, a guy just straight up brawling 6 other guys. They don't come much tougher than Biz. So good on him. Crazy to see those guys like kicking him in the head and stuff like that. But as he said in his famous quote, took some, gave more. So shout out to Biz for that. What did you think?
Yeah, that was released yesterday. I've been waiting to see this for a while. Paul Bissonnette, TNT analyst, former NHL player, involved in an altercation where, these guys, this group of 6 guys they're calling the Scottsdale Six. They were at a golf course earlier. They were at the restaurant that he frequents often, Houston's, just causing havoc. And he said, try to step in and help the people out. If you're a manager of a restaurant, you're not equipped to deal with maniacs like this. And all of a sudden, they just started throwing and fighting. You saw the video. They fought in the restaurant. There's a guy, with a baby in a car seat. He's getting the hell out of there as quick as he can. People are rushing out, and it goes into the parking lot in front of the CVS, and he's doing a great job, holding his own against 6 guys, backing away. But the biggest, this guy on Twitter /X, Shay Stevens at Whistleblowers, this guy's exposed this group of 6 people as a bunch of scam artists. They're part of a group of people called Irish Travelers, which I have never heard of before. And these people can routinely use fake IDs, scamming, run illegitimate businesses. And he really just exposed these people. And I'm starting to think too, if it wasn't Paul Bissonnette, former NHL, fighter, if it was any regular person, those 6 guys may have killed him. And something really bad could have happened. So what a story. I am following this every day as one of the guys had a court date yesterday, this Sean Daly, which they said for whatever reason he didn't have to show up for. So everyone thinks these people flew, bounced or drove far away from Arizona and got the hell out of there. So I'm curious what's going to happen because it seems like they've been able to get around the law for a long time. But it seems like Paul Bissonnette, if anyone, has really exposed, this group of people as people of no place in modern society.
Scam artists, are basically. Yeah, and I guess they're bringing a lot of bad attention to this quote Irish traveler community. It's actually some fascinating stuff. I think this goes back to, what was it, like the gypsies in Europe were sort of one of these. They were like more nomadic and traveling. Mm-hmm. What these guys do is go from state to state, and they make up these fake companies. They go in, they scam seniors, they take money and do shoddy or don't do the work. And so now there's more attention on this. That Shea Stevens actually just followed me.
Really?
And, yeah. So maybe we'll maybe if we've got some time next week during an off day, we can do a full recap of the Biz story and get to the bottom of what's next for these morons who, again, if you didn't see it, attacked a 19-year-old golf course employee just a couple hours before that business at Houston's in Scottsdale that Biz went to quiet down, ended up getting attacked by the 6 guys. So anyways, great to see somebody standing up for those who maybe weren't able to do it. Paul Bissonnette, you are a mensch. Oh, and the other thing, this is a totally non-sports thing, but all of these stories coming out about this guy that killed that healthcare CEO.
Oh, Luigi.
Luigi, yeah. The manifesto. There's some wild stuff going on. I'm just happy that we live in the toy department that is the sports section right now. And, we can make a mention of this stuff at the end, but we're more concerned about the Vegas Golden Knights tomorrow than any of these major world issues.
Yeah, that's, one thing that I did see that was very saddening, Huss. Randy Moss is taking some time off of ESPN NFL primetime for personal health reasons. And I don't know if, Larry Fitzgerald Sr. had authority to tweet this out, but he tweeted out yesterday that he was hearing, I guess there's some NFL Hall of Fame function happening, that Randy Moss has liver cancer. And so wishing him all the best. And hopefully, he can make a recovery. I don't know the details, but here's
the best to ever do it. I was obviously in Minnesota on Sunday, and I got a chance to see the piece on the ESPN Countdown. Randy's obviously dealing with. He is so beloved by the football world, but especially there. There is the Larry Fitzgerald, and then Larry Jr., I guess, responded to his dad. With Dad, I think it's best to respect his privacy on this. If he feels ready to share more about his health, he will. In the meantime, let's focus on sending him positive energy, prayers, and support rather than speculating. It's obviously serious if Randy's going into treatment and leaving the ESPN crew at this point, but there was a nice message to Randy at the game in Minnesota. You still saw a bunch of purple 84s in that park in the U.S. Bank Stadium. Still one of the most famous and beloved NFLers ever.
100%. And here's his son, Thaddeus Moss, who briefly spent time in the CFL, tweeting at Larry Sr. Huss. "This is disgusting. You've no right to make private matters public for the sake of engagement. I do not believe my father talks to you, so check your fucking sources." That's Thaddeus Moss, obviously going through a lot there. And I mean, that's the thing on social media. We saw, Kurt Schilling outed Tim Wakefield that he had cancer when it wasn't his. Sure, you got to be careful sharing personal matters. And Tim Wakefield left us too soon as well. So I don't know. I'll try to even be passing that along if Larry, it was certainly a story.
The bottom line is Randy Moss is dealing with some pretty serious health stuff, and everyone hopes that he'll be able to pull through, and we'll get to see more people get mossed on ESPN Countdown and see Randy live a life as one of the greatest to ever do it in the National Football League. Fun show today. Fun night last night at the rink. Tomorrow should be more of the same. The Vegas Golden Knights in for a big Thursday night tilt against the Winnipeg Jets. We will be all over it on tomorrow's program, so make sure to join us live at 1 p.m. and a little later on in your podcast feed in the afternoon before puck drop at 7 p.m. Thanks to Josh Goldberg, Murat, and great stuff with Kevin Sawyer from the first hour of the program. If you missed it, make sure to check it out. And, of course, a big thanks to all of our sponsors that make the show happen each and every day. Can't wait for another game day show tomorrow. We'll be all over it starting at 1. We will see you then. Stay warm. Have a great night, and catch you tomorrow right here on WST.
Oh, my God! Oh! Shut it down! Let's go home!
Thanks for tuning in to Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Make sure to subscribe on YouTube and your favorite podcast feed at winnipegsportstalk.com.